Hi,
Hi.
everyone. So sorry. I know that we were supposed to be doing a Facebook Live today. However, as I said, I always have technical difficulties, but it is all good. We have recorded this. As I said, I am sitting with Illeana Cocotos, someone that has really helped me, as well as a lot of my clients, through a lot of things that they have gone through. Today, we will be talking about taking a stand against the culture of silence in domestic violence matters. So I know Illeana has dealt with a lot of people in this regard, and as have a lot of people sit in silence and they don't allow themselves a space where they get to speak. And yeah, how are you, Illeana? How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Up and
After the
down.
technical issues, at least it's sorted out. We had a few gremlins today, but I'm
Yeah.
really happy to be here because this is a very, very important topic. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. A very important topic, but also a very difficult topic. So thank you for inviting me.
Of course. So I'm going to just give a little bit of my thoughts, and obviously you deal with this a lot more than I do, but I'm a firm believer that a lot of us sit in silence because of our own kind of perceptions of whether it's shame, whether it's fear, whether it's not being able to speak out, not being able to conceptualize it. When you think of people being silent during domestic violence, and when I say domestic violence, I mean emotional abuse, economic abuse, physical abuse, financial abuse, sexual abuse, all the kinds of abuse that you may face. Why do you think people are silent? Why do you think people don't actually say anything or do anything?
Well, Jennifer, I think there are a lot of dynamics. I think often we, as a society, as individuals, we often judge somebody who is in an abusive relationship. And there are a lot of complex factors. There are a lot of things that contribute, towards it. So my hope is that by speaking about it today, instead of judging, we can understand, that nobody signs up to be in an abusive relationship, and that we all have a duty, whether it is to speak up against our own individual, experiences of domestic abuse, or whether it is that we know somebody who is suffering in silence. We all have a duty, because if we look at the statistics in South Africa, a woman is killed every 3 hours. And 50% of those statistics are by an intimate partner. That is 5 times, the average in the world, and it's absolutely alarming. So we all have a responsibility. So if we look at, why people don't speak out, as you say, there is often shame. There is a feeling of embarrassment, a feeling of shock. We also have to realize that, a person who's sitting in an abusive relationship has often lost their sense of self. Over a period of time, her self-esteem is often broken down to a point where she's not independent anymore. She cannot look after herself. There are many complex factors. She may not have the support to leave.
She may not also see it. She may be in denial. She may, and I think that's one of the biggest things that we've discussed when it also comes to narcissism. When you're dating a narcissist, you don't actually see that you're being abused. You don't actually see that they're being horrible, because when they're being abusive on one space, in the other space, they're being nice, they're being kind, they're being loving. So I think that's one of the things that for me, I found to be one of the hardest things to conceptualize, is that you don't actually see it, like, until you see it.
Absolutely. Remember, this is a systematic pattern of coercive and controlling behavior. That is what abuse is. So someone is groomed into this relationship. You don't enter a relationship, and sign up for being abused. But over a period of time, as you say, there could be good times, and then they're intermingled with this control and power. And sometimes it takes a person a very, very long time to realize it. And by that stage, their self-esteem can be broken. They might fear. They may not have the resources to leave. You know, there's socioeconomic inequalities between men and women. Sometimes they do not have the ability. They may have children. You know, out of guilt, they might feel that they can't leave. So there are many, many complex factors. And as I said, instead of judging, you know, nobody can comprehend until they're actually in that situation. The victim may love the abuser. You know, she doesn't love the abuse, but she may love and think somehow that she can fix this and she can change it. So, you know, it gets to a point where so you can identify it's very, very, very hard. It's not an easy thing. And we often, you know, we shame victims and we blame victims, and we somehow think that perhaps they contributed to the abuse, perhaps on some level, on some perverse level, we think that they enjoy it. And that infuriates me, because there can be nothing, you know, further from the truth. We cannot sit in judgment. We have to offer support, and we have to understand that there are a lot of very complex dynamics that make her stay. You know, there might be cultural, you know, beliefs. There might be religious beliefs, you know, where a victim will re-victimize herself, you know, and feel that she cannot leave. So it's really not simple. And I think we have to understand, and we have to offer support, you know, rather than judgment, and understanding and listen, because often victims will, you know, will speak, you know, and we don't listen until it's too late, until sometimes the consequences are so severe that we're almost forced, you know, to then look and say, well, you know, in retrospect, she did say a few things, but often we also don't believe the victim. You know, the person also might be someone who's very prominent in the community, you know, and so she won't be believed. So, you know, if we think of an abuser, an abuser could be anybody. An abuser could be a college dropout. An abuser could be a CEO of a company. An abuser could be a medical doctor. An abuser could be.
And it's not intentional. I really do believe that abusers don't, and maybe this is probably just because the person that I am, many people that are abusers are actually hurt themselves. Many people that are abusers are actually, and that's why I think when it comes to people like me that will see an abuser, I'll never ever go, that person is disgusting or whatever. You must also understand, and this is what I think when it comes to abuse, like I could be abusive in some spaces. So I could be this attorney, could be a great attorney, I could be a great friend, I could be a great girlfriend, but I could treat my parents terribly. Do you know what I mean? I'm being abuser to my parents because I'm taking certain things out on them. I'm speaking to them without respect. So I think when it comes to abuse, it's so hard to identify because the person that's actually the abuser considers himself to be the victim as well. I did this to her because she hurt me. She lied to me. She didn't tell me the truth. She spoke to another guy. She didn't tell me where she was. So that all stems from pain. It all stems, like I am a firm believer that abusers and people that do actually hurt other people are completely damaged themselves. They abuse and they lash out and they take things out on other people because they're in pain. And I'm not justifying it for 1 second. But an abuser is an abuser. Someone that rapes or hurts or hits or is emotionally abusive is an abuser, done. But we also got to dig deeper and go, why are they doing it? Are they doing it because they're in pain? Or are they doing it because they're just naturally psycho? Do you know what I mean? Like, where does it come from?
Look, I think what you're saying is correct. They really are damaged. You know, often they have a history of abuse, you know. So, you know, if we look at boys that grow up in an abusive family where it is normalized, where this is seen as the norm, this is how we treat women, you know, that masculinity is about controlling women. The likelihood of them, you know, also finding partners and abusing them, you know, is very, very high. Likewise, girls that have grown up in an abusive relationship where this is normalized, that women are treated in this manner, will also one day find partners that will abuse them. So there most definitely is some underlying trauma, and they have obviously experienced that on some level, but we need to be very, very careful, as you say, not to justify it, to understand that yes, they are damaged people, but what they often do, as you so correctly said, is that they minimize the abuse. What you thought wasn't like that. You're making a big deal. You're a drama queen.
Or you made me do
so
it.
they will minimize, you made me do it. Okay, that is about, they never take responsibility. They blame the victim. And a victim will take on that guilt. They'll think that somehow if they'd done something differently, maybe the outcome would be different. So that is typically what they do. They rationalize, they blame everybody. They will never take responsibility. But we have to just be very careful to specify that it is intentional. Okay, so we cannot blame it, like you're saying, we cannot blame it on stress, on the relationship, on, the woman doing something, on financial stress. It is a choice, okay? As much as they are damaged, it is about power and control. It's not about love, okay? They are intentionally doing it to gain control and to punish sometimes, so it is this cycle of power and control. And that's why, as we said, they don't take responsibility, and they're so good at deflecting and putting it on everybody else. So as much as we can understand, that they have been through some kind of a trauma, they need help as well. They need to learn to take responsibility for their actions. And the victim also needs to be helped to understand that she has done nothing wrong. And we as a society have to stop blaming the victims as well.
Well, when I say when you say that she's done nothing wrong, I think when I deal with situations, I do believe that, and I'm not saying that a person that does get abused should be blamed or whatever. And this is the one thing that I always say to my clients: you don't get to control someone else's actions. You don't get to control what they do, how they think, how they speak, but you get to control how that affects you and whether you accept that from them or not. And I think when I came to see you, the first thing that you said to me, I would explain to you how friends would treat me, and how the person I was dating would treat me, and how all these people would treat me. And you would ask me, why do you accept it? And I would go, because I know that they love me and I love them. And the one thing that you said to me, which resonated with me so much, you went, but is that love? And my whole thought process of love was that I thought that genuinely my love and my kindness could heal someone. I don't get to play God. I don't get to make someone better or think that they're better. The only thing that I get to do in life now is to go, okay, this person might be hurting. I either choose to accept it or leave them and remove myself from their lives. Because sometimes we can't change people as much as we think that we can. And I think the biggest thing when it comes to sitting in silence is you might not be speaking to the world, but the silence in your mind is not there, because your mind does not shut up when you're in that space. So I think when you're thinking constantly, and that's why I say to people, if you are an abuser or a victim or whatever, you're always going to be a villain in someone's story, right? There are going to be women that are abusive, and there are going to be men that are abusive. Unfortunately, we live in a society where gender-based violence is a real thing. And some people actually are abused, and some people do take action. But some people also victimize themselves to a point where, and I've had women that have done this, where they haven't been abused by a partner. They're actually the abusive person, but they're turning it and they're twisting it. And I think if I have to ask you, if anyone is listening to this and feels a sense of uncomfortability, because I can give an explanation and a definition of abuse until I'm blue in the face, but I got to simplify. When you are with someone that makes you feel like you're not enough, that you're in shame, that you're this by virtue of their actions, that is abuse.
100%. That is emotional.
Do you know what I mean? So if you have to tell people right now, like, that aren't really sure, because me being a smart woman, dealing with things, thinking that I can control them, I'd be like, oh, I'm not being abused. I'm not an abused person. What does that mean? But I would feel like I wasn't enough. I would feel all these different things. So if you could give like pointers to people to try identify, to see if they are actually in a culture of a domestic violence space. Because how do you speak up if you don't see it? You can't. If you don't see it, you don't speak.
100%. Look, I think it is important, as I said, to define, what is domestic abuse? What are the different types of domestic abuse? So remember what I said. It is a systematic pattern, okay, of coercive and controlling behavior. So the important thing as well is it escalates over time. So it can start off with something minor, and it eventually escalates, and it can become more physical, and it can even result, in the partner killing, the victim. So that is how it is. Over time, it gets worse and worse. The incidents get worse and worse. So if we have to look at the different types, okay, so there's physical abuse, right? So that includes, hitting, slapping, punching, grabbing, pinching, pushing. It could even include, a male, and we are using the male as kind of the abuser in this talk, purely because 85% of victims of abuse are female. So it's not to say, as you so correctly said, that it doesn't occur with males. 100% it does occur, but the majority of women are women. So it can include the male using his size to prevent the woman from leaving a room, making her feel trapped, making her feel she can't leave. So that is and then, as we said, it escalates, and it can lead to stabbing and, shooting. If we look at the statistics, if there's a firearm in the house, it increases the likelihood of a woman being shot with that firearm by 800%. Okay, so those statistics are high. And when a woman eventually does leave, it increases her chances by 75% that she will be killed. And that is the most dangerous time, is when.
So what do we do? Our solution is actually to show people the signs, because unfortunately, as human beings, we only run for defense or run for protection when it does get bad enough. So I think for me, in this talk, like, we have to show people these are the signs, see them, and leave then. Don't push it.
Because also, if you look at it from going to the police, the police won't do something until something really happens.
Yeah.
As you say, sometimes it's too late. So I think that is important for us to identify, but most importantly, we have a duty as individuals, and this is my hope for the talk. Victims exist within families, within communities. Abusers exist, within families. We have uncles, fathers, grandfathers, friends that we know are abusive. So we all have a responsibility to speak up, and to speak out and to provide support. So the first, form of abuse is physical abuse. Okay. The second one, as you so correctly identified, is emotional abuse. Okay. So that is where you're made to feel bad about yourself. You're made to feel worthless. You're made to feel as though you're crazy. Your role as a partner, as a mother, is undermined. Your opinions are disparaged. Your opinions are not important. The abuser will make most of the decisions. So it's this thing of always undermining you, and that erodes your sense of self. It's where you are shamed, where you are humiliated in public. So all those things constitute emotional abuse. Okay, where your sense of self, eventually you lose who you are. And as we say, this is over a period of time. Slowly we make concessions. We give up parts of ourselves. It doesn't just happen straight away. this is, as I say, systematic. It's over a period of time. And often, you know, we don't realize, as you say, until it's too late. So that is the second form. The third form is verbal abuse. Okay, now this is quite an important one, because often we think it's just, you know, when somebody says bad words. The words don't have to be bad, but the words have to be carefully chosen, you know, to injure you, to control you, to make you feel bad about yourself. You
To
know,
attack
so
those little insecurities constantly. Like, I could say, for example, not feel insecure about something but to the world, but my partner knows that I feel insecure about that. And it's like a perfect example maybe like would be, I wouldn't like, you feel insecure about your weight. You don't get called fat, you don't get called that, but your partner will go, are you sure you should be eating that? Or are you sure? So it's not
that's a
like
very good
out
example.
right there, but it's going, are you sure you should be eating that? I'm showing you that I'm trying to care about you and care about your health, but actually I'm calling you fat. But when you defend yourself by saying, why did you say that? I'm gonna go, well, what do you mean? I just asked a question. And then that's when the spiral just starts and it's a mess.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. Okay, so it's this appearance, like I care about you, but it's actually not. It's very undermining. It's very subtle, you see, and that sometimes is far worse when it's more insidious. You know, the physical, you know, violence we can see. It's overt.
Yeah.
And I just want to, you know, just add that it's not the amount of different types of abuse, you know, that classified as domestic abuse. Any one of these forms is abusive, you
Of
know,
course.
and we cannot say the one form is worse than the other, because they are all equally as damaging. As you correctly identified, sometimes it's you know, more subtle, but it's this, you know, as you say, this you know, undermining of you that can be very hurtful. So we can kill a person's spirit without even, you can, you know, kill them inside without even laying a hand on them. You know, so that is what verbal abuse is. So it's not, you know, as I said, the bad words, but it's the choice of words, and it's about power and control.
It's also the effect. It's the effect on a person. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned throughout all of this, is that people can do those things, people can say ugly things, but my responsibility and my power right now is to go, that didn't make me feel good. I'm not going to defend myself in it. I'm not going to engage myself in it. I'm not going to allow it to break me as a person. And I'm also not going to allow myself to overthink it. And I know it's going to sound very simple when I say this, but it's still complicated. You stay or you remove. You don't overthink. You don't try and understand. You don't try and make sense of it. When something makes you feel really bad, and I think that's kind of, it's like an easy solution, but it's harder in practice. If people are going and doing things and you're feeling uncomfortable and you're feeling bizarre, as human beings, we go, let's explore. There's a red flag, like literally waving in your face, and you're like, but let me just see more. And let me just see more. I think as a society, as women, we have to see, okay, when people do things, is this a trigger from our past that we have a trauma, that when someone does something, we're just overreacting? Like, is it an actual trigger? Or is because this person is actually disrupting ourselves? And the one thing that I started to rely on a lot, I don't overthink things anymore. I trust my gut. Something that always spoke to me, but I never listened to. I trust my intuition that when something feels uncomfortable or abusive or strange, I don't explore it anymore. I just cut it. And it might be not a really good way to live, but I'm protecting myself and I have to.
Look, I think that's very important, you know, because our body doesn't lie. Our body gives us signs, and as you say, we ignore it. So it is about listening to our gut. You know, our gut never lies. Our body keeps the score. You know, is a reminder that things are not okay. But as you said, is about identifying, is this abusive, is it not abusive? And as I say, that might be because that's how we've grown up, thinking that that's what love is. So hopefully, people are going to be able to identify. And if you're not sure, get help. Go and get help. Help someone, speak to somebody. Get help so that someone can help you to identify.
You helped me identify it, definitely. Like, when I got asked that question, like, I grew up in a family that was extremely loving. I didn't grow up with abusive parents. I didn't grow up with trauma, but I still thought that love was something that is not. Like, and that's the one thing that you said to me. You're like, Jennifer, that person can be amazing to you in this space, but then when they do that, that's not love. When they